Hello, everybody, and welcome to the special video podcast episode of the Henson.com podcast. My name is Grant Pachoco, and today I am in the Jim Henson's Creature Shop here in Burbank, California. And joining me is Julie Zobel, who is the head of puppet fabrication for the Creature Shop. Julie, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Grant. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you very much. And today we're talking about the Skeksis figures that are, there's one here in the Creature Shop, and there's two over on the Jim Henson Company lot. And Julie, you worked on restoring these, correct?
That's correct. This one has not been restored, so you will see how sad they have become over the almost 30 years old that they now are.
And so when they decided to display these, what condition were they in before, like when you opened the boxes or however they were kept and looked at them for the first time?
Well, luckily, the heads were in pretty good condition because all of the heads are display heads. They're not actual puppeteerable heads. So they're quite hard. You can hear that. So the heads were in okay shape. The costumes were dusty, a little frayed, but they were supposed to be frayed originally. So the costumes were okay. But the hands are in terrible shape. The hands are the originals, and they have begun to completely decay. So this pair I have not yet restored. And you can see here how the armature wire inside is being exposed and all of the exterior is cracked and dusty and breaking apart. And so I'm going to have to restore this.
Now, what is the process to restore them? What, basic, for our audience at home, what would you have to do to restore them?
Well, what we like to do, because we like to use as much of the original as we can keep intact. So we use just a combination of tissue paper and casting latex. And we tear the tissue paper into little pieces that are uneven edges, so the edges will maybe blend away onto the original hand. And then we begin to wrinkle the tissue paper a little bit as we dab on casting latex. And then we let that dry, and we will maybe put on a little more or maybe just the latex and give it a little texture and let that completely dry. And then we carefully paint over them. We also, before I do any of that process, I usually try to do a very gentle cleaning so that things will stick to them. And that has to be really delicate because they're toast, what we like to call toast. They're coming apart.
Now, this is, so all this foam latex is, as you said, 30 years old. About how long does it usually last?
It really depends on what the exposures are. If it's in sunlight, the lifespan is going to be much shorter. And I would say 5 years probably is when you're going to, if you're lucky. If it's really high sunlight, heavy sunlight like we get here in Los Angeles, maybe less time. But usually they're displayed inside, and so the life expectancy is longer than that, but we've never really tested that. Generally, something that's on display for us is rotated with other things, and so they come and go out of displays. So this was in London for quite a long time, and we don't know how it was displayed there or where it was displayed and what it might have been exposed to. But sunlight is really, that's the thing that breaks down the latex most.
Now, if we could see under the costume, what is underneath here? Is it just a sort of a wire figure to hold it up, or is there controls and stuff underneath there?
There are not controls anymore. There is a wire frame, and there is some padding. It's in really bad shape, and so when we move them, we tend to leave little piles of dust wherever we go. But that's a thing that, because it's so covered up, we are not replacing that. I take that back. I did replace one pad in one of the Skeksis in Hollywood because he was so collapsed without it. But the pad that had been there was like a little bag of dust, and so it was useless. But this guy has so much big, heavy costuming. The shape of his body doesn't look distorted from the original.
Now, do you enjoy coming to work and getting to work on projects like this?
I love it. I do all kinds of things. I do new things, I do old things, and restoring something it's fun for me because it's part of the history of the company. And, it's somebody else's work. I didn't work on the Skeksis, so I get to look at how somebody else did something. And I get to just enjoy working on something that was done so well originally, and it's just falling apart because it's old. So, yeah, I love it.
Now, you just said that you, working on it, you can see how somebody else worked on it. Do you ever learn something from restoring these old creatures?
I really do. I do. And especially the understructures, that's where I learn things. And it's a little harder with the Skeksis to actually see them because they're so covered up. But in working on other people's work for other things, you always learn something new. Sometimes it's what maybe you don't want to do, but often it's, wow, what a cool way to approach that. I wouldn't have thought of that technique. So yeah, it's always a learning curve, and I love it.
Well, Julie, thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us today.
It's been a pleasure, Grant.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Henson.com podcast. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.